From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, I'm ready for an interesting conversation today that I think a lot of people out there are going to be able to relate to. How are you?
Doing good, Steve. And yourself?
Doing well. I'm excited. We have, if you are checking us out on video, we have a little bit of a new look. So looking forward to sharing that with everybody too. And I'm glad that we're getting more traction on this. And I think that this is going to be another great conversation.
Oh, I agree. Definitely looking good and looking forward to our adventures.
So one of the things that we have come across, both James and I now are in a little bit of a different role where our careers have progressed. You know, we started out both doing programming, probably doing things on a very specific level, maybe for a specific need for certain clients, and we've moved on to having to get more managerial and do things a little bit differently, having people that we work with being exposed to different things. And what I wanted to talk about today, and James had this great idea, was how do programmers differentiate themselves, and how and with regard to not only finding new opportunities, but building themselves a career, because there's a lot to be said for people that can do a job and you can get a job done, but how do you make yourself more worth either a higher job, a different position, or more money, just to be frank. So James, in your experience, and whether it's something that you did for yourself or what you're seeing others do, what do you think that starts with regard to programmers differentiating themselves?
I really think it starts where almost any job starts out, creating your projects, making sure you have those listed on your resume or your CV, whatever terminology you use these days, but having those portfolios of all the projects you've done so you can show what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that's probably a big part of um, the process of being evaluated. It's kind of like creating a portfolio where if you're an artist or you're a marketer or you're somebody who is a little bit of an artistic talent, like programmers can be considered that. They want to be able to showcase their work. And it's not necessarily only the names of the clients that you work with, but maybe some of the unique things you've done, or even finding projects that really demonstrate your skill set. One thing that I've come across is some people don't have that access, in their day-to-day job. What do you recommend there, or what have you seen people do?
If you don't have it in your day-to-day job, like if your current job does not allow you to build custom programs, you're using configurator or anything like that, one, keep those projects, but also, like we keep saying, the side projects, any projects you're working on at home or your own side gig or whatever you're doing, because like I said, you always need to be working on our craft of programming, learning new things. So you can use those side projects as well and say, hey, I'm teaching myself this, or I have a project where I'm building this and writing this. And I think those show that you care, and that two, you're always advancing and learning.
Yeah, I think along those same lines too. I mean, you're totally right. And from my perspective, and I found that people in this industry that are successful usually love what they do, and they're willing to do it on their own time. One of the things that I try to talk about, whether we're training new people or whether it's just a good strategy, is take a project that you've done and maybe write it in another language, or maybe take it and say, hey, I want to, this is where it started, and I've added features and functions, or taken it to the next level. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that was for a client, as long as it's something that provides value. And it might even be something that can be worth something in the future for either your current employer or for yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, all this stuff adds. Not only does it add to your tool belt of things you can leverage on, but again, it adds to your portfolio. We keep saying that you can show these to potential bosses or supervisors, or even when you're looking for a promotion, and you go into your current boss and say, "Hey, look, this is all the stuff I've done here. This is the stuff I've done off hours. And I want to advance." And now you have things to show why you should advance your career.
Yeah, I like that a lot, it shows initiatives, it shows your ambition, and it also shows your creativity. The one thing that I would point out is um, where making sure that what you do actually is valuable to a client, not just taking code and making it fancier or making it more intricate, which we all can appreciate and is something that other programmers might say, wow, that's impressive. But part of that also needs to be adding value in the end to a client, because we're all in a business setting here, and there needs to be something there that you could point to and say that I created more efficiency, or this is something that was made this a little bit more marketable.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Steve. Definitely, we have to be giving value to our end users, our clients. Um, we don't just throw bells and whistles in there just to rack up the bill, and then you're not being a good champion for your client there, and you're just almost, someone can say, you're showboating just to get the program out there. Um, and that's another thing, is the way I look at it, and I have examples where they're done badly, is use this system personally. And if you are not comfortable with it, then probably your user's not going to be comfortable with it. Like, there's some of these registration systems that I use for sports teams. I don't think the programs ever used, because you have to jump through hoops to do anything. And none of it makes sense. I just think that there are a bunch of programmers who's like, oh, we'll throw this system together and, market it out there. And like I said, they are all junk. I'm sorry. If any of you guys hear program sport registration systems, they're junk.
And it's funny that you say that too, because stuff like that is what gives engineers and programmers and people in the technical area a bad name, because they do something really great, but they're not looking at usability, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why there was a big push toward user experience. There's a big knock there, because there's plenty of products that fall into that same line too, where it may have looked good to the person that created it, but how much did they really try to use it or test it with users?
Oh yeah, and that's big, and that's another avenue to bring you back to set yourself aside, is you can show your potential boss or supervisor that you take the feedback of your clients seriously when you're working on things. I mean, I've done that. I've gotten the blind spots of, I wrote a UI for one of our event spaces, and it made perfect sense to me. I knew how to use that system in and out. I'm like, this makes sense to me. And then the main people who are using it, they're like, can you change this? Can you make it do that? And yeah, I did that for them because they were the main users, but I had to take my personal feelings out of it. And because like I said, I'm like, this makes sense to me. I know how it works. So of course it makes sense to me. The user needs to be able to use it.
Without a doubt, there, and I think that's something that we all have to be cognizant of, because there's certainly a movement in the industry that says, why do I pay so much for this custom programming stuff? And I think we need to be able to always be showing value and ways that we're either making an experience better, or saving time, or saving money, or making it, providing something that can't be done with some type of out of the box solution. As we wrap
Yeah.
up, I think, we should probably leave the audience with a couple of tips. Is anything that, for me, what I definitely want to share is that that programmers should always be learning something, should always be looking ahead, should always be trying to cut their teeth on something, even if they're not great at it, because that's certainly appealing, and it helps for growth. And it also makes it look like you're trying to be with the times. But again, making sure that it isn't something that is not an isolated case that doesn't really have much relevance to the audience that you are trying to prove yourself to. Anything takeaway there that you wanted to share?
Um, None that really popped to my mind, but again, it just build those project lists and make sure that you're doing what you can to stand out and learn and try different things.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, that's what we have for today. James, how can people get in touch with you and learn what you're up to?
As always, you can find me online. I'm sure you Google my name, you'll find me. But on Twitter, AB_James King, a writer for the Higher Ed Digital Magazine, the IT and AV column, the HEPMA. Again, anything out there, I'm sure you'll find me.
And for me, you could reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social platforms. Twitter and LinkedIn are probably the best bet. And you could also read some writing of mine on AV Network, or also on my company blog at controlconcepts.net. And please keep your feedback coming. We want this to be a two-way conversation, and we want to be able to be fielding the questions that people have in the AV programming space. So we want to hear from our audience. So not only reach out to us, but also like and share episodes. We really appreciate it. And with that, this has been Ask the Programmer.